Hello there, welcome back. Time now for our weekly spreadsheet segment. This week, we're taking a closer look at corporate strategy and see how companies can translate a good plan into excellent results and boost their balance sheets as well. Our next guest says implementing a winning strategy is no easy task, but get this, 9 out of 10 strategies fail because they're not carried out properly. Well, let's say hello to Robin Speculin. He is the author of Beyond Strategy, The Leader's Role in Successful Implementation, and he is right here next to me. Well, thank you so much for coming. I think that's really an interesting point that you point out, that 9 out of 10 strategies, no matter how successful they are, they don't fully get implemented. Tell us more.
With pleasure. In the last few years, what leaders have realized, they appreciate that most of the time there's a staggering failure rate. What's changed today is they want to know what can they do differently. They understand that we spent too much time focusing on strategy and not enough time on the implementation. And we've underestimated the whole challenge.
What is the big stumbling block for companies not being able to carry out those plans, in your view?
Well, going forward, once they start to roll out the strategy, one of the companies we worked with, for example, in one of the banks, what we noticed was before we went in, the leaders were spending 85% of their time per month talking about the operations and only 15% about the strategy and its implementation. This ratio has to be reversed. The leader's role is to focus on the strategy, because if they don't pay attention to the implementation, then their staff don't pay attention to it, and it will fail.
And you also talk about in your book that it's important to make that emotional connection with the staffers out there so that they understand precisely what's going on.
Oh, too true. You know, one of the things we notice so often is implementation never goes according to plan. Whatever you've planned in the boardroom, it never happens when you execute it. Therefore, don't try and dot the I's and stroke the T's. Get going. Roll out the strategy. And then once you get going, the next thing you have to do is keep reviewing it. Not once a quarter, but every 2 weeks. Because you've got to change the dialogue in the organization so that people are discussing and talking about it.
And why is it important to promote mavericks in the company?
The mavericks are the people who support you. With so many implementations failing and it being such a staggering high failure rate, the odds against you succeeding are slim. Therefore, you got to do as much as you can. The mavericks are the ones who will make it happen. And when you support them, they'll start to support you and start to give you traction.
Give us some great examples.
In one of the organizations where we were working, what we did is we took the top 20% of people who support. And now most people think that they'll resist the implementation. What we've discovered, it's only 20% of the population who resist, 60% who will sit on the fence, and 20% who we call the mavericks who support. We pulled out those mavericks, we supported them, we gave them the recognition, we helped them improve their work, and they got on board with the strategy. They gave us early wins and quick successes. And as a result, we started to see the implementation happen faster.
But how do you tell? How can you tell one is a maverick and the other isn't?
It's easy to see in their behaviors, in the way they do things. So, for example, when you identify the right actions that you need to see happen, then you'll see the people who start to take it, because that's the leader's role. They have to be the voice of the strategy. They have to be the one who's shouting about it and talking about it at every meeting, offsite, and discussion. Has to be the first thing on the agenda. And they'll see the people who respond. They'll notice the ones who get on board. And then they've got to make sure that they're doing the right actions. In addition, you've also got to identify the actions you don't want people to do. So with one client, we also identified a to-stop list.
Right. We have to leave it there. We're just about up against the clock here. Thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts there. Robin Speculin, author of Beyond Strategy, The Leader's Role in Successful Implementation. I hope you were able to get some key takeaway points there. And coming up in the second hour of CNBC's Cash Flow, Capital Land CEO telling CNBC about its growth plans as its retail mall unit makes its market debut. We'll keep you posted on that. Plus, an exclusive interview with another Singapore blue chip company, SIA CEO Chu Chun Sang. Stick around.
Future of Finance, sponsored by qfinance.com.
The big lesson from Japan is that it's much, much better to act too soon than too late, to do too much than too little.
Tim Geithner and Larry Summers used to say that we're too late. But are they quick enough now?
The Fed could have and should have knocked heads together. Now, this is one actually of the main lessons from the Japanese experience, and this wasn't done.
In the banks that we ended up taking over, the management was changed, the boards were changed. Every banking crisis is solved sooner or later. It's a question of how fast and to what cost.
We've changed nothing about the system that brought us to this point, and this is really asking for trouble down the road.
It may well be that we've reached a world where banks can't go bust anymore. That's a really uncomfortable position because somebody will abuse it.
The Future of Finance, sponsored by qfinance.com.
This is no ordinary car. These are no average building projects. An electricity like this has a spark like no other. Alternative investing on CNBC.com is a whole new world of opportunities for a smarter generation of investors. So change the way you invest in oils. Go to alternativeinvesting.cnbc.com in association with HSBC Private Bank.
Meet the bodyguard.
Drill Bit Taylor reporting for duty.
For the nobodies.
We just worry about you.
We'll get you in the gym. We'll beef you up. Look at these guys.
Owen Wilson is Drill Bit Taylor.
I will watch over you like the Lord Almighty himself. Careful.
He'll teach them all he knows.
I want you to watch my technique.
And make up the rest. Drill Bit Taylor.
November 22nd to the 29th on HBO.
The speed, the counterpunches, the Pac-Man in one of the most anticipated fights in the boxing world.
Hi, I'm Manny Pacquiao challenging Miguel Cotto on November 14 in Las Vegas. It's gonna be a historic fight. Don't miss it.
History is set to be written. Press the VOD button on your remote control and witness the explosive encounter.
Shares of Capital Malls Asia trading at 6% above its IPO price on its debut in Singapore. Taiwanese regulators reject China Trust plans to raise $1.4 billion in a private placement, while PC makers in Taiwan lead gains on that market on expectations of an increase in computer shipments next year as economic recovery gathers momentum. And hello there, we're into the second hour of CNBC's Cash Flow. Thank you very much for staying with us. I'm Chloe Cho. Let's bring up the boards for the major markets in North Asia. We are seeing a mildly positive, well, no longer, certainly very choppy trade, as you can imagine today. The Kospi still lower, off 0.2. The Shanghai Composite and the Hang Seng have turned gear. They're now trading south. The Shanghai Composite bleeding by 0.7. The Hong Kong market's off 0.2 as well. The Nikkei still sitting with a 4-point gain. Let's bring up the boards and find out what is happening in Southeast Asia at this moment. We've got a split picture. The STI moving up, and along with the Jakarta Composite by a small margin. The Philippine market and also the KLCI moving south as well. Certainly really hard to digest how the markets are moving today on the back, given that we had minor losses on Wall Street. Yesterday, we had big gains, but the markets moved south. Very choppy trades, plenty of profit taking kicking in as we move into the year end. Let's bring up the boards for the Thailand markets. Just joining the trading day, higher by 0.8%, 681 for the Bangkok SET. Meanwhile, let's bring you up to date with what is happening in Thailand. Former Prime Minister Samak Sundarawet has died. Samak lost his battle with liver cancer and succumbed at the age of 74 to the disease yesterday. He rose to power as the self-proclaimed proxy for the country's ousted leader Thaksin Shinawatra and became Thailand's 25th prime minister in December 2007. But the job lasted only 9 months. Samak had to step down after a court ruled that his appearance on his TV cooking show during his term constituted a conflict of interest. Thaksin was, in fact, among the first Thai politicians to express his condolences, saying that he regrets that he could not return to the country to attend his funeral. And let's get back to our bread and butter, of course, the market business news, and check in with Emily Chan and find out why the markets are now heading south.
Hi there, Chloe. That's right. Turning tails 1 hour into the trading day, and the Hang Seng Index is now pointed to the downside off of almost 0.4%, 22,348, and our 8 shares. We're seeing the losses pile on there, down more than 1%, 13,194. I'll show you where the weakness is coming from, and it is the mainland banking sector. Comments coming out from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority chief after a meeting with the CBRC, the China Banking Regulatory Commission, not doing anything to soothe the market. Norman Chan saying that banking regulators on the mainland will not raise the capital adequacy ratio, as some media had been reporting the previous day. But banks have been urged to ensure that their CAR stands at 10% by the end of this year, and if not, they have to raise funds in order to get that level there. We're seeing shares of BOCOM, China Merchants Bank, traded to the downside by 3%. But we got a couple of winners today, and that is the 2 pair of IPOs that came to the Hong Kong market today. Fantasia, this is a Chinese property developer that does luxury property. The company raising $400 million in its IPO. The stock started at $2.18, currently sitting about 10 cents higher, sitting at $2.29. Sany Heavy Equipment raising $308 million, also a nice debut for this stock as well. $4.80 is where it started, $6.61 in 1 hour of trade. Flip the boards. Let's take a look at what's happening to shares of China Strategic, one of the big underperformers today, plagued by its bid to take AIG's Nanshan Life. Now, the company was supposed to take part in the private placement of China Trust, but that has been closed by the Taiwan regulators. They basically rejected China Trust's fundraising plans to raise $1.4 billion on concerns of the source of one of the buyer's funds, where it's coming from. If you may remember last week, China Trust, China Strategic, as well as Primus Financial trying to take a big stake in Nanshan Life and got their door closed by Taiwan regulators over the concern that more than 30% of the funds were coming from the mainland. So China Trust Financial, pull up the financials in Taiwan, is the underperformer today. It's the only one that's pointed to the downside, off 0.5%. All of the other Taiwan financials are stronger today, as is the TAIEX. Now, we'll pull up the PC makers because we're seeing strength there as well. This comes after Quanta Computer revised upwards its shipment forecast for the first quarter of this year. Earlier, it had expected a decline of 10%. That has been revised upwards to a decline of 5%. And Compal Computers expects PC shipments to rise 20% in the fourth quarter of this year, quarter on quarter. Compal Electronics higher by 2.1%. Acer and Asus Tech shares gaining 1.7%. Chloe, back to you now.
Thank you very much. Emily Chan taking us through what is happening in the Greater China region. And let's take a quick snapshot of what is happening to the Forex majors. The yen quite strong today, yet the Japanese exporters actually managing to be quite resilient today. 88.30, euro dollar 149 at this moment. And moving over to the commodity sector, crude futures retreating to a 1-month low as the potential for rising supplies sparks a retreat. Let's take a look at NYMEX light sweet crude futures, off a little bit more than our earlier check, down 10 cents at 75.92 at this moment. The spot gold, though, is holding steady at those lofty levels, 1,174. COMEX gold December futures also at 1,174 as well. Let's check in with Sri Jagaraja for more on the commodity scene. Gold. You were earlier telling me to hold on to all of my gold earrings.
I hope you have, Chloe, because the price of bullion just continues to defy gravity. It's fast becoming a one-way bet in many respects, which is interesting given the fact that a dollar seems to be relatively stable against the euro. Remember, it was in recovery mode yesterday as more money went into the greenback as a safe haven because of concern about the pace of the economic recovery in the US. We got the third quarter GDP numbers coming out strong, but not as strong as the market was hoping for. So, given all that, spot gold still rising to a new record, $1,175.80 an ounce. A lot of people are saying, the bulls in the market, I guess, that it could take out 1,200 in the not too distant future now. That is becoming quite a realistic proposition, possibly next week if we continue to see persistent US dollar weakness. That said, there's a lot of people who are saying that the gold trade does look quite overextended, is looking very top-heavy at the moment, and is due for a correction. But even if we do see a correction right back down to 1,000 to 150 perhaps, there are some buyers who could come in at that level and prop the price back up, possibly even to a new high. Take a look also at the physical demand for gold. Fabrication demand isn't looking so hot at the moment, given the fact that at the retail level, prices are very high, and what the Indian wedding season and the festive season really showed us was that demand wasn't as strong as in recent years because of these record high prices translating to high prices on the shelves as well. But for now, another new high for gold. We're talking about 1,200 as the next level to be reached, and possibility that could be breached. But do brace yourself for a correction because we do look a little bit overextended. But that said, a lot of people have been advising to buy this commodity on the dips, Chloe.
And certainly, I'm taking a look at a report that some of the miners complaining that there are just not many discoveries out there, and
yeah,
the deposits are exhausted.
Some miners talking about peak gold.
That's a sad thought. You know, I've got to move on to the silver and copper and other things.
Maybe platinum.
Well, thank you so much, Sri. Jagger Raja there. And we've got plenty more coming up right here on CNBC. We are going to be talking with Capital Mall's Asia Chairman Liu Mun Leong, and he's going to tell us about the company's growth plans as it makes its market debut today. Keep it right here.
Executive Vision. Sponsored by Credit Suisse.
But one of the great things about challenging times like these is that you can go ahead and make tremendous change.
Leadership is all about creating the right environment for our people to innovate and go through the crisis that we always have. And it's the people and the organization that are going to drive us, but we as leaders have to create the right environment for them to innovate.
How some companies use adversity to gain advantage. That actually is easier to leapfrog competition in down times.
It's great to be in a business where no one believes you can do it. It does give you a little bit of time to go out there and do something before anyone else has any opportunity to react. When the incumbents are probably all in a bit of a turmoil, it's the best time to go out and build market share.
Executive Vision. Sponsored by Credit Suisse.
This month on Gateway to the Middle East, budget airlines in the region spread their wings further afield. We ask if the region can support so many players. 40 years on, we look at the growth of aluminium Bahrain, the largest aluminium smelter in the region. And we look at the challenges facing the Turkish wine industry.
Gateway to the Middle East on CNBC in association with Business Friendly Bahrain.
As a Forex trader, I chose Interactive Brokers for my business. Unlike other Forex brokers, they don't mark up quotes. I trade with the highest bid and the lowest offer that IB selects from 10 of the world's largest Forex dealers. With group equity of $4 billion, Interactive Brokers is a safe haven for my money. Interactive Brokers. Forex, stocks, options, futures, bonds. Worldwide from one account.
Another first on CNBC.
Is it going to get tougher?
We are cash rich.
We're looking to continue growing.
The information you need, fast, accurate, unbiased. CNBC.
On the next Worldwide Exchange, we'll have the details on GM's plan for its Opal unit.
Pre-holiday rush of U.S. data rolls on with reports on personal income and spending, durable goods, and new home sales.
And we'll discuss if Japan's government and the BOJ can get past their differences to tackle deflation.
All right, let's focus on the IPO action here in Singapore. Capital Mall Asia, Singapore's biggest IPO, in 16 years. Take a look. Current price $224, issue price $212. Not really getting up to that $232 level. Is that the 10% level that a lot of the market participants? What happened?
Well, it started off strong, didn't it? It had a nice 8.5% pop earlier in the morning when it debuted. It's starting to pull back a little bit. We are seeing some weakness in the market, so that could be a part of the reason for that. But it did generate quite a bit of interest from institutional investors, of course, as well as retail investors. And a couple of reasons for that. When you take a look at the amount that they've raised, $2 billion US, gives them quite an ammunition to spend, certainly in Asia. And what they're doing is they're betting on the Asian consumption story, and that is China. Now, I had a chance to speak to the chairman, Liu Minlong, not too long ago, and started asking him what sort of potential he sees in China.
Well, in the first place, we are talking about China urbanization program and the economic growth of China. And if you look at the requirement to stimulate domestic consumption, there is a consumer society down there that is waiting to be stimulated to increase domestic consumption. Now, China is grossly undershot. But what it means is that in terms of organized trade, what we call organized trade through shopping mall, China is only 20% of the total trade through shopping mall, whereas US is 85%, Singapore is 65%. So you can imagine that from 20% organized trade to grow double to 40%, there's enormous demand for properly built shopping mall in the right locations. In terms of the volume demand, if you look at the capital values, China capital values of shopping mall at 205 Sing dollars per square foot is 1/5 of Singapore, which is more than 1,000. So in terms of capital growth of our shopping mall, you can imagine there's potential for it to be upgraded, even double its values.
What sort of numbers are we looking at in terms of expansion?
Well, we have 50 malls in China. We think that very easily within the next 3-5 years, I can build 100 malls.
Governments here in Singapore and China have already put measures in place to cool the market. There's talks about property bubbles